Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast for agency owners, hosted by agency veteran and coach Steve Guberman. Agency Bytes is a podcast focused on delivering actionable agency information from agency experts in about 25 minutes. Why 25 minutes? Because who has the attention span for much more these days? And you can squeeze in a listen between meetings with time for a bathroom break or coffee refill before your next meeting.
Welcome to Agency Bytes, a podcast dedicated to helping creative entrepreneurs thrive. I'm Steve Guberman from Agency Outsight, where I coach agency owners to build the business of their dreams. I am thrilled to have Armin Vit on the show today. Armin is a co-founder of Under Consideration. He's the editor and primary writer of the popular blog Brand New, and along with his wife and business partner, Bryony, he's a co-organizer and co-host of a bunch of events. So the Brand New conference was established in 2010. The first round conference was established in 2018, and in-house, in-focus, in-person launches in 2025. Together, they've curated a selection of more than 450 individual speakers and hosted more than 12,000 attendees since 2010. That is quite the accomplishment. Armin, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure to be here, Steve.
Yeah. So for me, an exciting moment. I've been following you and your blog for, I don't even know since when, but the early days of, internet, fame of, the launch of CSS and all that nonsense. But curious about what prompted you guys to start Under Consideration and then start Brand New and how that all came about.
Well, I'll try to make a long story really short.
Yeah.
But in the early days of the 2000s, when blogs started to become a thing, I initially joined a blog on typography called Typographica.
Mm-hmm.
And I became first a commenter there, then an author, and that's where I started to learn about movable type at the time, which was the best option for blogging before WordPress became the norm. At that time, I used to have a full-time job, and then I just figured this seems fun, so I'll just start a blog about graphic design, just like there's one for typography. I'm sure there will be interest in doing one for graphic design. So that's when Speak Up started in 2003. And back then, no one knew who I was. There was no reason for anyone to know who I was. So I was okay with that. Mm-hmm. But I felt like in my youthful, naive, confident ignorance that people should know who I am and they should be interested in my writing. So I started just writing on Speak Up, and I would email people at the time, just go through websites of design firms that I respected or that I appreciated, and just grab all of the info at emails that I could find. And I said hey, I've started this blog called Speak Up. And yeah, slowly but surely, people started reading it. It was the first design blog. And not so much I say that not so much to pat myself on the back, but just it was the first. There was none before it. We just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And from there, things evolved into launching Brand New, launching Quipsologies, on Art of the Menu, FPO. Those are a few blogs that we don't run anymore. Mm-hmm. Brand New sort of became the bread and butter because people seem to really, designers and regular people seem to enjoy logo changes. And, we launched that in 2006, not knowing and not even having the ambition to have it become what it is today. So it just slowly grew, eventually started our own business called Under Consideration, me and my wife, and partner and designer as well, Brian, who started that in 2007. And yeah, just sometimes by ambition, sometimes by survival, as in with the recession of 2008 and 9. That's when we launched the Brand New conference, thinking that, we have this big audience online for a blog that's dedicated to low identity and branding. So what if we had a conference that had the same focus? That worked out. And then we just sort of kept growing within that niche over the past, what's it been now, 14, 15 years.
Yeah, it's been a long, great run.
Yeah.
You're not still on movable type, are you?
No, it actually, I still have the install working, and there's some archives there just in case I ever need to get something from there, because Brand New was on that platform for like 10 years. So
Okay.
when we moved to the subscription model, I had to move to WordPress. Like there was no way I
Yeah.
could keep using movable type.
When did you shift to the subscription model? I don't even remember that.
Yeah, that was 2020 with the pandemic.
Okay.
So when the pandemic hit, the conference had become our main source of income.
Hmm.
So when with the prospect of it going away for who knows until how long, we're like, we need to figure out how to make money, because also I should mention that from 2007 to 2018 19, we also did design work for clients.
Hmm.
Not a lot, but enough to just keep some keep the kind of like the creative, not juices, but just like that challenge of working with
Yeah.
designers a lot, with clients alive, which is always interesting. But then in 2020, we realized like that just doing client work is not going to be enough to sustain a family of four, plus four dogs. So that's when we started the subscription model, like knowing that we had a large audience, and we took a gamble, thinking, all right, we're going to lose a big chunk of the audience that just came in every now and then. But if we're able to maintain even 10% of the audience, or like the ones that come in every day, we'll be able to survive at least 1 year.
Yeah, and even with the freemium upgrade model, like as a non-paying member, you still get to see the before and after. But if you really want to get into the critique, like sure, a paid model, it's what, $20 a year, $20 a month, or something
Yeah,
nominal.
it's
So
$20. It's $2 a month, $20 a
yeah.
year. We try to keep it as accessible as possible. In part, so like part of it was our fear that no one would want to subscribe. So
Hmm.
we should, like we did the math. Like if 10,000 people subscribe at $20 a year, like we're set for a year where it's going to be amazing.
Hmm.
So we didn't want to we wanted to take the price out of the equation of deciding whether to join or not.
Yeah.
But even with that, I mean, we have a policy of, if you cannot afford it for any reason whatsoever, let us know, and
Mm.
we'll give you a subscription for free. And you think like $20, who cannot afford $20? But it's amazing and humbling how many designers out there in different parts of the world, people that have been laid off recently, they just simply cannot afford $2 a month. Sounds silly, when you're not silly. That's a bad choice of word, but it just sounds like uh sometimes unfathomable.
Yeah.
So we give that out, and I think we had like 10% of our audio of our subscription base is free. We're up to like 32,000 subscribers, so 3,000 people at least get it for
Wow.
free.
Well, I'll say that's I commend them for sticking to their budget, because how many people are like, $2, it's not my budget, I'm just going to figure it out. But that just means that they can't figure it out, and that's certainly humbling. But also the fact that they were able to come forth and be like, hey, I don't have $20, like that's also very humbling and beautiful that you're able to offer that.
Yeah.
But yeah, very cool. Now so you're juggling a lot, right? Client work, running, building conferences, the website. What kind of drives your passion the most of those tasks, I'll say?
Well, the one that stopped driving any passion was client work. We completely abandoned that.
Okay.
Yeah, as of 20, like we took one last job in 2020, maybe 2021. And then after that, it's like, that's it. Like we need one in 2022 when we saw that the events were coming back, and sort of the energy that people brought to the first brand new conference after the pandemic. We're like,
Hmm.
this is it. We need to focus 100% on this and not be distracted by client work, which always took a second, like it took a back seat to the conference and the blog. So, and we sort of lost the energy it takes to go through the process of the whole thing, from
Hmm.
pitching, to not pitching this free design work, but pitching your your services, scoping out the work, etc., and then going through the first round, changing, like, that's not enough. But yeah, the passion lies in that this is what I know what to do. I don't know how to do anything else. I don't have any other skills or abilities that will allow me to make a living. So it's just like, how can we make this as enjoyable as possible? to, have a decent lifestyle for me and my family. And at the same time, we do enjoy it. We enjoy, like, the thrill of doing a live event is, you know it's quite a high. And then when, getting people together and having people enjoy it, like, that's what drives our, just kind of like all of the decisions that we make are around how can we make this better for everyone else that's participating in it, whether it's the blog or the conferences.
Yeah, no, I love that. I recently went to probably my first in-person design conference in a number of years, and I left there so charged up and re-inspired and invigorated. Really, it was an intimate event, and maybe 200 people, 300 people, and so yeah, it was very invigorating. So I can see the impact of what you do, in planning those events, just through the one that I went to. So yeah, so the focus of brand new is it's a design conference.
Mhm.
What's the focus of the new event that you're putting together?
So the brand new conference, which we've been doing for since 2010, so that one is all about designers and design firms who are actively doing logo identity and branding projects for clients. Over the years, we've usually had a few in-house representatives in there, but it's usually just like 2 out of 16 sessions. So it's
Hmm.
like, it's kind of like we want to dabble, we want to have that aspect of being an identity designer represented, but we know that there's a lot more out there within that realm. So we wanted to have a conference that focused just on the in-house experience for graphic designers working in, brand communication, marketing teams, in every conceivable type of company possible. So uh, because the experience changes so much whether you're working, obviously, for profit versus nonprofit, but also if you're working in educational institution
Hmm.
versus retail, and whether you're working in a company that has 1,000 employees and there's like a team of 100 in the design team, or you're working for a company that is 10 people strong and there's only one person doing everything for that company. So we wanted to have a conference that highlights all those possible uh, spectrums of the in-house design experience. And part of it is noticing that a big part of the audience on brand new, the conference and the blog, are in-house designers. So we wanted to have a space and a platform just for that.
And this is next year will be the first time doing that. Was that out of I guess attendee demand, like people wanted that, or you just saw, hey, there's an opportunity here?
Yeah, no, we thought there was an opportunity. In part of it is seeing how the industry has changed,
Hmm.
and how the professional opportunities for designers in the in-house world has really grown tremendously in the past 5-7 years, where, like, before, 10, 15 years ago, if you were a designer and you said, oh, I'm going to go work in-house, all the other designers would be like, oh, you failed, you cannot get a
Yeah.
job at a design firm, so you're giving up and joining kind of like the evil side. And now I think, like, some of the best design work and some of the best designers and creative directors and design directors are working in house. So it's a little bit of acknowledging that shift and changing the perception that in house is where creativity goes to die, which, again, for a
Yeah.
long time, that was the sentiment that, an in-house design team simply cannot do the same level of work as a design firm, which
Right.
now, the past 2-3 years, it couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah, there is that kind of misnomer of I'm going to go to corporate, and that's just where you're going out to pasture. And certainly, a
Yeah.
lot of innovation is happening on the brand side, where they're focusing on user experience and focusing on customer care and things like that. And it's definitely been elevated. And I've seen that a lot, where so much talent it has left in the past 3-5 years, the agency side, and gone back into the corporate side. And uh, be interesting to see if that's a cyclical thing, or in my career, 25-ish years, that's the first time I've really identified that or seen that. But it is something that's an interesting trend.
Yeah, and I think it's tied to how much more, CEOs, CFOs, CMOs understand the need for, not just proper branding, but proper branding and identity deployed
Yep.
consistently over time, for the benefit of their company. Whereas before, it's just like, it's an expense that they didn't want to have, and if they did, they would hire someone else. So why have a team on the payroll that's going to be doing all this stuff that's not really that important? But now I think with the acknowledgement of how important it is, that has also made it more of a priority to attract the right talent to produce, good work 365 days a year.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the blog of Brand New and the content
Mm-hmm.
that you're putting out, and it's primarily brand comparisons, old versus new, and then there's a critique by you guys for each of the brands. Has that evolved? Like that's been the formula since day one, pretty much.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's the writing style has changed a little bit. Part of it is my own maturation as a
Hmm.
as a designer, as a person. In the early days, it was very catty. It was very kind of like sarcastic and ironic, and it was more negative. So that has changed a lot, but the premise has remained the same. It's just like, here's the company, here's the logo, whether it's a before and after or a new. Here are the ingredients that they put together: typefaces, colors, illustrations.
Hmm.
Here are the applications, and then just break it down, piece by piece, and then give an overall impression, like, is this good, is this bad, but not just like, do I like it or not like it, is this appropriate for the client or not, is this appropriate. And it's not so much that I have that me or the guest writers that we have the right answers. It's just like, based on our experience, we can tell, we can sense whether this works or not, or whether this is right or not, and we might be right or wrong, but it starts the conversation. And for others to like just like uh, look at the work that they're seeing on Behance, on Instagram, whatever, and just like, hey, is this just pretty or is this just ugly? But how does it fit the client? So that's what we've always tried to encourage, like seeing it in the context of the marketplace, the industry, both like the corporate industry and the design industry. How does it fit in the trends? How does it fit in, you know things that are innovative, stuff like that.
Yeah, I personally love the commentary, but I also love the subscriber commentary, whether it's on Instagram or whatever. Just the feedback, whether it's positive or negative, the way that people just kind of jump in and no holds barred, throw things back at you.
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
can be, for a long time, when it was when brand new was free, and you had like more random people just coming in and commenting and saying like, oh, this is shit, or like, hey, I could
yeah,
do it better. I think it can be a lot of negativity, but now, on the blog with the subscription model, like, the comments are much more thoughtful, and
yep,
whether they're negative or positive, I think it's just nice to hear how others interpret the work that you did. And you can learn about, whether you think they're right or wrong. There's always something to learn and take into your next project. So on Instagram nowadays, it can get a little bit catty, but that's
yeah.
what happens when in an open platform. That's what you get, so you have to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, and to your point on the behind the paywall, it's more constructive. It's I want to say it's more objective as it can be.
Mhm.
Considering everybody has different experiences and perspectives, and they weren't in the room for the briefing, so you don't really know what the client's needs were, or what the client's pushback were, things like that. So, from a comparison standpoint, over the years, you've probably compared thousands of befores and afters and things like that. Are there any that kind of like really ring out for you that were just impacted you in any kind of way?
I always bring up the example of Airbnb. Uh,
Hmm.
just one, they had a terrible logo beforehand. It wasn't terrible. It was just like completely. It was of the era of the early, or well, the second wave of the .com era. But it was just like this bubbly thing, and then they changed to introduce the A icon, and it kind of like very simple, the sans serif geometric word mark. As probably all listeners know, it was one of the most ridiculed icons
Yeah.
of all time. It looks like testicles, it looks like boobs, it looks like ass, like a butt, whatever. There was a song written about it, and but what I loved about it was that the founders, and at the time Design Studio, which was a young design firm, that was their first big project. I think they were all convinced that they had gone through the correct process and made the right decisions along the way, that they could withstand the backlash that was, it was one of the strongest backlashes and negative reactions against the logo that I've seen in years.
Mm-hmm.
And even at the time, I thought it was a really good logo, both the icon and the wordmark. And then now it's like clients go like, I want a logo like Airbnb. I want, something as simple, iconic, memorable as Airbnb. Like, yeah, it was change just like gets people in a frenzy, and like people don't know how to handle change. Even designers who promote change, we're the first ones to be like, no, that is too weird, that's too different. So I always use that as an example of work that is done with conviction from the designers, from both the designers and the clients, and knowing that what they did is not shouldn't be surrendered just because some people, even if it's a lot of people, are like making fun of it.
Yeah, they shouldn't. I'm glad they didn't roll it back like Gap did. Obviously, that was another complete train wreck, but they stood behind it, and they built a beautiful brand around it. So, I think they even put out a video, how they talked about and justified how they came to the identity that they came up with. And so, yeah, I love that example. What about trends? Like, are you, again, thousands of logos later, 15 years later, have you really seen a wave of trends? Are you able to kind of pick up on that stuff as it's actually happening in real time?
I mean, as it happens, it's rare, but like there are instances, for example, like Airbnb kicked off 5 years of geometric sensitive word marks. Like it was first Airbnb, then Google, and then 100 others.
Mm-hmm.
Then there was the fashion industry that first Burberry, then I can't remember which ones were the other ones, that they just went in like a neo grotesque sans serif, and then everybody started doing that. And then a couple years ago, like we saw a lot of really weird logos, not for large companies, but for, like especially with the rise of direct to consumer goods, I think where there's, clients were willing to take more risks. There was a lot of like weird little wobbly, curvy, exaggerated word marks that I think were a direct reaction to all those sans serifs of clients wanting to stand out in any way possible. So we saw that. I think the colors come and go. The electric blue has stayed consistent over the years. I think last year or a couple of years ago, like black and yellow were all over the place. But yeah, it's hard to like, because I usually do nowadays. I do kind of like the trends that we saw the previous all through the year. At the end of the year, I'll look at the posts and see like, all right, what were the recurring things? So sometimes it's hard to tell what it is until you look back, like, oh, a lot of people used grainy gradients. A lot of people used, 1 year was the font P22 Mackinac. Like everybody was using it. So, and it's not that, it's weird because a lot of that work comes out at the same time. It's not that someone saw it and they copied it. That happens after. But when the trend first appears, like, why is this happening? And I still haven't found a clear explanation for that. Sometimes things just come out at the same time. There's something in the air that makes designers behave and make choices a certain way.
Yeah. Do you do any trend contributions like Jacob Castle do it a year in review on design trends, or Logo Lounge, or any of these trend reviews?
Yeah, I mean, I'll do it on Brand New, where I just we do a 10-part series of like the best icons, the best word marks, the best monograms, best use of illustration, best use of photography, and then we do one of trends for the year. What I don't do is trend forecasting. Like, there's no way. Like, it just seems like a futile exercise. How can you tell what's going to happen? Like, no one knows. I mean, I guess trendcasters know somehow, but like
Or they guess.
for me, I have no idea. It's just like we have to wait and see how the design industry is going to behave that specific year.
It's all speculative. Yeah, I feel you on that. Other than .com swooshes, what's a trend you wish would come back?
I mean, it sort of has come back, like the late 1980s, early 1990s, kind of like beach vibe with the
Hmm.
neon colors and the Saved by the Bell patterns. Like I love that stuff. It's just like I just sort of see it coming back. I think we may have, because like usually decades come back 30 years later. So I think, the 90s didn't quite have the, as big an impact as the 80s or 70s before. So,
Yeah.
maybe we still have 6 years to bring back some of that goodness.
Yeah, we'll see if it makes a recurrent trend like bell bottoms
Yeah.
did or everything else does. So I'm going to throw a couple random rapid fire questions at you. The answers to which can be business, personal, digital, or physical. The
hmm
first is, what's something that you recently kind of integrated into your life that you look back and like, how did I live without this thing before I used it?
I'm gonna go personal on that one, and it's stretching.
Mm,
I haven't done it in the past 2 or 3 months because of the conference, but from January until like June, July, every night I was stretching for like 15, 20 minutes at a time. And it's insane how much it frees up your life, because my hamstrings are like a damn rock. Like it's my hamstrings and my quads just
yeah.
from sitting, standing, working all the time. So yeah, that has been life changing, which is like, and I do it at night, so it's a lot of breathing in, breathing out, and holding a position for 5 minutes. So I do it around 9 p.m. and then by 9:30 I'm so relaxed and I just hit the bed and I go to sleep immediately.
Love it. And now, is it like a yoga flow or is it just kind of whatever feels good you're doing?
No, it's just I do follow a program, and it's like each day is a different part of the body. So one day
Okay.
is hamstrings, one day is the back, shoulders. And it's all about holding positions, not yoga positions, but just like stretching positions for like 5 minutes at a time, so that you relax those muscles and everything stretches. And it's a lot of breathing in and out. So again, it's just like it's very zen like, which,
Mm,
like I've always thought like I don't have time for stuff like that, for,
yep.
zen stuff. Who has time for that when you have so much work to do? But I found it that it allows for the hard work to happen when it needs to happen, and it happens with more flow.
Yeah. If you make time for it, then you have time for it, whether it's
Exactly. Yeah.
exercise, stretching, meditation, going for a walk, whatever. It's got to be a priority.
Oh yeah.
Um, what's something that you are binging these days, whether it's a book, a podcast, an audiobook, a show, something you just can't get enough of, or a hobby or something?
Um, I would say podcasts. I don't I when I listen to podcasts, it's more to disconnect rather than to learn. So I
Hmm.
enjoy Smartless,
Yep.
Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard. I think Dax is one of the best interviewers on the planet. He's just
Yeah.
he's my hero and role model in terms of how I would like to be able to speak to people and how I would like to have conversations with other people. So I do listen to it as a way of you know learning how to listen and how to contribute to conversation, which to me has always been a difficult thing in social situations. I'm an introvert by nature,
Hmm.
so kind of like learning through his process is interesting. And then TV, whatever junk is on, right now I just picked up The Penguin
Hmm.
with Colin Farrell. I don't. I haven't heard much about the show, but his performance is pretty amazing. Like he has this kind of like the waddle, like the
Yep.
penguin waddle, is pretty good. So yeah, I'm catching up on that one.
Yeah, I also love Dax. I think he's brilliant in pretty much everything he does. But yeah, he's great. It's interesting. You're not the first person that does events that has claimed to be an introvert, and I see those as like pull like an introvert putting together thousands of people. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. And so to me, I'm like intrigued by that.
Yeah, I think what it is that I when we do events and when I'm hosting the event, because I get on stage, I introduce people, I do a little shtick, I'm in control. And it's not that I need to be in a position of power. It's
Hmm.
just that I can control what is happening. I define what we're talking about. I don't have to answer questions. So it's kind of like, it's an internal monologue gone outwardly. But, in like in the moments during the conference, if there's like a slow moment where I'm just like hanging out while speakers come in or while the audience is having a break. I'm just in a corner, just like, hi, yeah, I'm the host. Thank you for coming. But like, so yeah, it's just when the dynamic changes where there's less interaction one on one or 1 on 5 or whatever. Like that makes me feel a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah. And then just to throw a hook in before I throw the last question at you, I want to say that I am grateful that you joined me, but I really admire how you have built a career around things that you're passionate about. And it all centers around the design industry and how design impacts people and vice versa. And I think more people need to kind of take a lesson from that, because, how many people do we know that get stuck in jobs and career paths and whatever that makes them miserable? And you've made it a point to chase something that is drawing from your passion. So I admire that about you. And so my final question to you is, what is just an invaluable piece of business advice that you can offer to agency owners that are listening?
Oh, I would say, and this doesn't come easy, but I think the willingness to take risks and gambles and sort of going in doing things that are uncertain, but that you feel passionate about or that you feel convinced could work. We've had to do that over the years, like, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes by ambition, sometimes because that's what we need to do something to survive. But whenever we've taken this sort of kind of like conscious decision, like, all right, this is a risk, and you analyze what are the pros, what are the cons, and like we write it down on paper, like what is the worst thing that could happen, what is the best thing that could happen. If we fall in the middle, is that good enough? So yeah, it's just that willingness to be like, we could burn everything to the ground with this decision, but if we don't, it could be amazing. And if it falls somewhere in between, all right, break even.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's it. And then just spreadsheets. I don't know, like for some reason, I end up with a bunch of spreadsheets of different stuff, and it's amazing how much it helps to just organize thoughts, organize data, stuff like that. So I have a few, but then Bryony, my partner, she is a spreadsheet fiend. She has so many. She invites me to all of them, and like I can't keep up. There's just too many spreadsheets. But yeah, that's what just organization and clarity of what goes where and when and who does what. It allows you again to sort of look at what you have available at your disposal to execute something, with certain feeling of safety, even if you know that it's a risk.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's great advice to, take risks and calculated risks, obviously.
Yeah.
And sounds like you need a spreadsheet to manage all of your spreadsheets.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Armin, thank you so much for joining me, for sharing your experiences and your ride, your journey over the years with us. It's definitely been an honor to have this conversation with you. So thanks.
Thank you so much. It was very fun.
Thanks again for tuning in to Agency Bytes. If you know someone with expert knowledge on a topic that agency owners would love to hear about, go to agencyoutsight.com/podcast-guest and nominate them.